every heart there is a room, a sanctuary safe and strong, to heal the wounds from lovers past, until a new one comes along. I spoke to you in cautious tones. You answered me with no pretense, and still I feel I said too much. My silence is my self-defense, and every time I've held a rose, it seemed I only felt the thorns. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so will you soon, I suppose. But if my silence made you leave, then that would be my worst mistake. So I will share this room with you, and you can have this heart to break. And this is why my eyes are closed. It's just as well for all I've seen. And so it goes, and so it goes, and you're the only one who knows. So I would choose to be with you. That's if the choice were mine to make. But you can choose decisions too, and you can have this heart to break. And so it goes, and so it goes, and you're the only one who knows.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo. My name is Bill Park, and I'm honored to serve as your worship associate today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Whether you are from near or far, are new, have been here for a while, or a long timer, are attending in person or virtually, we are happy you are here. Everyone is welcome here. And after the service, please join others in the parish hall for fellowship. We meet on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee people, and we wish to honor the ancestral guardians of this land and its waterways. Today, many indigenous people continue to call this land home and act as its stewards. May we remember that the responsibility to share and care for this land extends to all people, so this territory may be a healthy home for generations to come. The Board of Trustees invites you to attend the winter congregational meeting today here in the sanctuary of the church. The meeting's being held to approve the minutes from the prior congregational meetings of this church year and to elect new board members to replace departing board members. Volunteer sign-up and in-person ticket sales are happening after the service in the parish hall for Sotto Voce, the Magic Flute. Please see Leslie Bolt. Please see Phil Nicolai today. It's like live television. A meeting for people interested in green burial will be held today in the Lions Room immediately following the congregational meeting. An hour-long Introduction to Sufism class is being held today in the Marge Gardner Lounge beginning at noon, brought to you as a religious education event. Mark your calendar for a community potluck February 10th in the parish hall from 5 to 8 p.m. Come share food, fun, and conversation with United for Peace as part of a RE event. And now I invite you to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. Take a moment to greet your neighbor. Say hello to someone you might not even know.
It's really hard to call you back. You're having so much fun. Good morning. I'm Reverend Cathy Harrington. I'm serving this congregation as their interim minister. And it's an honor to be with you this morning. The opening words are from my favorite minister who writes the best opening words, Reverend Gretchen Haley. Life comes for us in 1,000 different ways, undoes plans, upends traditions, knocks down the doors of our defense in a moment. Every expectation releases like the in and out of breath. Life is urgent and also unbearably slow. And it does not take well to our fantasies of control. We gather here to practice surrendering to the waves of grace and grief, in song, in silence, and in story. We come to remember the possibility of the larger call that we might offer our gifts with a surprising generosity, that we might release ourselves from the needing to know, that we might simply be present to this beauty, to these partners, this hope that we make together. Come, let us worship. The dropsies today.
Please join in reciting our lighting the chalice words as found in your order of service, and please rise as you are able. We gather in loving community, creating a shared vision of compassion and dignity for all, to radically transform the world in which we live.
Please remain standing and join me in singing hymn number 1037 in your blue hymnal. We begin again in love. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible. For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause. For each time our greed has blinded us to the needs of others. For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit. For losing sight of our unity. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness. So now it's time for the story for all ages. Those of you who are young or just simply young at heart are invited to come forward to hear the story. Good morning. Good morning. It's good to see you all this morning. So this is the story about the girl who never made mistakes. Have you ever made a mistake? Me too? Okay. Poor girl. For Beatrice Bottomwell, Friday began like any other day. She matched her socks, and of course she put her shoes on their proper feet. She remembered to feed her hamster, Humbert, his favorite fruit, broccoli. And when she made a sandwich for her brother Carl's lunch, she used exactly the same amount of peanut butter as jelly. And when she stepped outside to greet her fans, she didn't forget to say good morning and thank you. Hi. Come in. They asked if she made her bed, and she had. They asked if she forgot to do her math homework. No. What about tonight's talent show? They asked. I'm ready, said Beatrice with a smile. After all, her juggling had won 3 years in a row. Most people in town didn't even know Beatrice's name. They just called her the girl who never makes mistakes, because for as long as anyone could remember, she never did. Unlike Beatrice, Carl made lots of mistakes. He ate his crayons and drew with his green beans. He danced with his hands and played the piano with his feet. Carl loved to make mistakes. After school, Beatrice was on a cooking team with her two best friends, Millie and Sarah, to make their giant rhubarb muffins. They needed 4 eggs. Beatrice went to the refrigerator and carefully chose the biggest, eggiest eggs she could find. But on the way back, her legs slipped out from under her and the eggs went flying. Beatrice was about to make her first mistake. But she didn't. Wow, what a gal, huh? That was close, thought Beatrice. Sorry, Beatrice, I dropped a piece of rhubarb. Oh, don't mention it. She had an egg in her mouth. She got an egg in her mouth. Hello. Want to sit? You can sit right here in front of me. Can you see? Okay. For the rest of the school day, Beatrice could not stop thinking about her almost mistake. And on her way home from school, she watched Millie and Sarah ice skating in the park. Come join us, said Millie. It's fun, said Sarah. Beatrice watched them slip and slide on the frozen pond. Millie and Sarah laughed as they wobbled on the ice. No thanks, said Beatrice. At supper, Beatrice barely touched her food. Is everything all right, kiddo? Asked her father. I'm worried I'll mess up tonight, said Beatrice, and everyone will be watching. Worry? Why, you don't make mistakes, he said with a smile. Beatrice tried to smile, too. After supper, Beatrice got ready for the talent show. First, she woke up Humbert from his nap. Next, she got the salt shaker from the kitchen table. And finally, she filled a balloon with water. Wonder what she needs that for. So the school auditorium was packed, and Beatrice felt her stomach jumping around inside her. Beatrice waited for the juggling music to begin. That's her. That's the girl who never makes mistakes, said a woman. Oh, we know she'll be perfect, said a man. When the music started, she tossed Humbert into the air. And next she added the salt shaker. And finally, the water balloon. Beatrice didn't miss a beat. The crowd clapped with delight, but Beatrice noticed something odd about the salt shaker. Uh-oh, the specks falling out of it were not white. Uh-oh. Achoo! Humbert sneezed. Oh my goodness. Humbert was so surprised by the sneeze that he grabbed the water balloon with his claws. Oh, kaploo. Humbert, pieces of water balloon and pepper rained down on top of Beatrice. And for the first time in as long as anyone could remember, Beatrice made a mistake, and it was a big one. The music stopped. Beatrice didn't know what to do. Cry? Run off the stage? What should she do? The crowd was stunned. They couldn't believe the girl who never makes mistakes made a mistake. Beatrice looked up at Humbert, and he looked back at her. His hamster fur was soaked with speckled with bits of balloon. Beatrice let out a giggle. And then the giggle grew into a chuckle, and then the chuckle became a laugh. It was a funny sight. The people in the crowd looked at each other and then back at Beatrice, and they began to giggle, and then chuckle, and then finally roar with laughter. Beatrice and the audience laughed until they couldn't remember why they were laughing. That night, surprise, surprise, Beatrice slept the best she had ever slept. How about that? And in the morning, there were no fans to greet her. When she got dressed, Beatrice, for no reason at all, pulled on a polka dot sock on one foot and a plaid sock on the other. Beatrice and Carl made sandwiches, and this time they put peanut butter and jelly on the outside. They called it an inside-out PB&J, and lunch was messy and delicious. Later, Beatrice found Millie and Sarah skating in the park, and they fell a lot, and they laughed. Now the people no longer call her the girl who never makes mistakes. They just call her Beatrice. And that's the end. So what was your favorite part of the story? Yes. When the hamster took the balloon with his claws. Yeah, that was great. Yeah. When they made Inside Out PB&J. Yeah. What's yours favorite? When she caught the egg in her mouth. That was so funny. So, there's a Buddhist, Zen Buddhist priest who wrote a book called Instructions to the Cook, and he says that your mistakes are your best ingredients. So it's really a relief, isn't it, to know that it's okay to make mistakes? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we're going to sing you to your classes.
Each week, we take a good portion of our Sunday offering and give it away to a social justice cause outside our church walls. This month, we are supporting the good work of Our Mommy Village. Our Mommy Village is based on the belief that every mother deserves a robust village. Cheyenne Broughton, the visionary force behind Our Mommy Village, is both the founder and a catalyst for empowerment in the world of motherhood. As a doula, she has been a steadfast companion during births, a guiding light through breastfeeding, and a pillar of support in the postpartum period. Our Mommy Village has grown from humble beginnings into a vibrant community hub, offering doula services, breastfeeding consultations, healthy lifestyle encouragement through weekly lunches, bi-weekly village meetups, and extended postpartum care lasting up to a year. It truly takes a village to raise a mother. In this village where women uplift each other through the challenges and joys of motherhood, Our Mommy Village stands as a beacon, ready to help raise them all, dedicated to equity in healthcare and motherhood for Black women and women of color. To support our Share the Plate ministry, you can drop a check or cash in the offering plate. Find more details on giving in your printed announcements in the order of service. Let us give generously to support the good work of this church, which is so important to us and to our community. The offering will now gratefully be received.
Oh, the money that e'er I spent, I spent it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the the sweethearts that e'er I've had would wish me one more day to stay. But since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and I'll softly call. Good night and joy be with you all. Good night and joy be with you all.
Before we enter our time of centering and silence, I'd like to offer you this centering poem. I only discovered it just a few years ago. Stanley Kunitz, I don't know if any of you are familiar with his work. It's called The Layers. It speaks to the message today. I have walked through many lives, some of them my own, and I am not who I was, though some principle of being abides, from which I struggle not to stray. When I look behind, as I am compelled to look before I gather strength to proceed on my journey, I see the milestones dwindling toward the horizon and the slow fires trailing from abandoned campsites, over which scavenger angels wheel on heavy wings. Oh, I have made myself a tribe out of my true affections, and my tribe is scattered. How shall the heart be reconciled to its feasts of losses? In a rising wind, the manic dust of my friends, those who fell along the way, bitterly stings my face. And yet I turn exulting somewhat with my will intact to go wherever I need to go, and every stone on the road precious to me. In my darkest night, when the moon was covered and I roamed through the wreckage, a nimbus-clouded voice directed me. Live in the layers, not on the litter. Though I lack the art to decipher it, no doubt the next chapter in my book of transformations is already written. I am not done with my changes. Now let us pause to honor the silences of the world. Let us open our hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain, and the soft, gentle coming of love. We especially hold in our hearts this morning Mary Rickart's son, John Flaherty, and Kate O'Sullivan, who got married this week. Congratulations to them. And we also hold those in our hearts that we are close to and those that we do not even know, who are suffering in sorrow, pain, and grief this morning. May they know peace. And now let us fill this sacred space with the names of loved ones that we wish to honor this morning, that we hold close in our hearts, some suffering in sorrow and some celebrating in joy. The breath of nature is upon us, the spirit of life is within us, and the community of love surrounds us. So be it, blessed be, and may the church say amen.
Today's reading is preceded and followed by some reflections of my own. Growing up in a big family, and for most of my life, I've compared myself to others. Was I keeping up in terms of finding a partner, education, career, house, car, my kids' achievements? How do I get beyond this endless comparing? It wasn't until my son graduated from high school and I decided to celebrate that I found the cure for envy. What was this magical cure? Well, the cure is different for everyone. But for me, it was buying and riding motorcycles. You see, I had 2 motorcycles when I was a teenager, but when I started college, I stopped riding and focused on building an education, family, and career. For 35 years, I stepped away from it. But when my son graduated from high school, I bought a nearly 10-year-old used motorcycle. The previous owner had gotten it to go riding with his buddy, but his buddy had moved away, so he was selling it. I took a rider safety class, got my license, acquired riding gear, and purchased it for the modest sum of $3,000. I've since gotten a second bike. At that point, something in me changed. Riding a motorcycle is like flying on a magic carpet, like Aladdin, when going slow, and like riding a rocket when going fast. I've had so much fun motorcycling for so little money, I think I must be the richest, luckiest guy in the world. A UU minister late in life developed a mantra that I think has some merit in grasping the notion of letting go. Letting go of self-criticism, letting go of envy, letting go of not enoughness. Do what you can, want what you have, and be who you are. The minister, Reverend Forrest Church, said in an interview with PBS, doing what you can is doing all you can. It's not just, mucking by, but it's not trying to do more than you can, stretching yourself out and forcing yourself into failure. Wanting what you have is to recognize that we tend to only want things that we don't have. It's like we're looking out through a lightly stained glass window with all sorts of different projects, our vocational and avocational and parent and children projects, and then our health is down there. But you never try to look through the glass that says health until it clouds over. Then we push our nose right up against it. And all we can see is the darkness in the glass, and our whole world goes dark. If we back up from it and say, I want friends who love me. I want a family who's helping me. I want the sun to come up, and I want the day to be beautiful. All of these things, all of these prayers get answered, and if you want what you have, finally you come around to saying, I wouldn't be appreciating all of these things with nearly the same intensity if this one pain had not gotten dark. And then to be who you are. Probably the hardest of all is not to try to fake your existence. It is to accept, embrace who God has made you. Each one of us is unique. Each one of us with flaws and gifts. Each one of us special. And then to take that and return it to the world in such a way that you will live your life that it will be proven to be worth dying for. Through motorcycling and letting go of envy, I found new friends, communities, and delightful experiences. To illustrate, did you know that motorcyclists share what's called the motorcyclist's wave? When we pass each other on the road, total strangers, we wave at each other. It's our way of connecting and saying, be safe, enjoy the ride. It's incredibly dangerous what we are doing, isn't it? But I see you and honor you because we are both doing this and enjoying it, and it's awesome, isn't it? Keep the rubber side down. In other words, do what you can, want what you have, and be who you are. See you on the road.
Mary Oliver, known as Saint Mary in UU circles, wrote a poem. It's in our hymnal, Letting Go. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends upon it, and when the time comes, to let it go. To let it go. Easier said than done, letting it go. It's rarely comfortable, letting go of what we know. Change almost always involves adjustment. Our desire for comfort often overrides our desire for change. We procrastinate and wait way too long before letting go of something, even when we know it's best for us to do that. I read that even insects go through this process of delaying. Caterpillars, for example, may put off spinning a cocoon for an entire season if the elements aren't just right. We make the choice to postpone our letting go, and sometimes we postpone our possibility for transformation. A silkworm must give up being a silkworm in order to become a butterfly, St. Therese of Avila once said. Postponing the inevitable and the unpleasant. Aren't we all guilty of this at some time or another? What have you been putting off? What are you postponing? It reminds me of a little boy I once knew in South Carolina when I was a hairdresser. His name was Zachary. He was 4 years old. His grandparents adored Zachary. We all adored Zachary. I gave him his first haircut and looked forward to, children aren't easy, but Zachary was easy. He was adorable. So one day they were babysitting for Zachary and they discovered that he had a tick deeply embedded in his scalp. So they were really worried. Zachary's grandfather put him on the edge of the kitchen table, and the grandparents started engaging in a very serious debate about what is the best way to remove this tick from Zachary's scalp. And then they began to assemble things like tweezers and alcohol and cotton and all these things that looked kind of scary. So just when his granddad was ready to remove the tick, Zachary looked up at him with great resolve and said, "Granddaddy, I believe I'll just keep this tick." I think Zachary must be in his maybe 40 by now. I wonder if he knows I tell that story everywhere I go. Isn't it a great story? But it's not any funnier than some of the logic that we go through to try and convince ourselves to hang on to things that no longer serve us. I love the Buddhist story of the raft. The story is about a man who luckily finds a raft that will carry him across a swollen river. So grateful that he found that raft. After he crosses the river, he doesn't want to let it go. So he decides to carry it on his back for the rest of his life. It becomes a heavy burden that he must carry. And the Buddha said when he tells this story, that isn't the correct way to use a raft. Another Buddhist story of a person walking through unfamiliar country on a dark, foggy night, and they step off an unseen cliff. As they fall, they reach out and they're able to hold onto a ledge, yelling for help, holding on, and nobody comes. It's too foggy and dark to look down, but they're sure that it's a deadly fall beneath them. And finally, they realize they can no longer hold on. They lose their grip and fall 6 inches to the solid ground below that had always been there. Life is an endless chain of letting go of old beliefs, childish ways, saying goodbye to friends, losing loved ones who have passed on, treasured belongings. Clinging is a natural response to the painful shedding of old ways. Growing up means letting go of our youthful dependency and accepting full responsibility for ourselves, and finally getting it that nobody is coming to the rescue. That was one of the life's challenges, most difficult for me. And then I don't even want to talk about getting older. And every morning when you look in the mirror and go, oh my God, how did my mother's hands become on my arms, So many losses in our lives, so many. How shall the heart be reconciled to this feast of losses? But we miss opportunities when we're clinging to things and not opening up possibilities. So clinging comes from the Anglo-Saxon word klingen, which means shrink. When we cling to people, ideas, resentments, we shrink our possibilities. If you watch the Nature Channel, you may have seen this acted out by the African monkeys and the hunters who set monkey traps, a can or a bottle with a narrow top and food inside. The monkeys reach inside, and they aren't able to pull out their hand because they reach in for the food and it's too narrow, and so they hold their fist and they cling until they're caught. Held hostage by clinging. What held me hostage for clinging? I thought about that a lot. What must I go to be who I am? There's a wise proverb, a Zen proverb, that says, after the enlightenment, the laundry. It means that nothing changes after enlightenment, and you have to continue doing your life day to day to day. How is this possible? One Zen master said, after any powerful spiritual experience, there is an inevitable descent, a struggle to embody what we have seen. The well we fall into can be created by clinging to that experience, even of that enlightenment. Spiritual ideas and holding on to inflated ideas of our teachers, our path. The well can be the unfinished business of our psychological and emotional life, an unwillingness to acknowledge our shadow side. But the enlightenment is only the beginning, and after the enlightenment, there is the laundry. You have to get back into life and integrate what you have learned. Well, I was a hairdresser for almost 30 years. I was a pregnant teenager. My mother-in-law owned 40 beauty salons. What happens when that happens? You go to beauty school, which wasn't my idea. So I was really living a lot of lives that weren't my own, it seemed. So I got the idea that I was going to move to Alaska and open a bakery cafe. My call to feed people was bread. And then I found my way down the Alcan Highway to Berkeley, California, where I'd be studying to become a minister. After the first year of seminary, which was a lot of deconstruction of my belief system, my assumptions, and even my marriage fell apart, I was faced with the task of selling my 45-acre farm in South Carolina over the summer between semesters. I loved that farm like Scarlett O'Hara. It was so hard. I clung to it as long as I could. I even wrestled with switching seminaries. There was a Erskine seminary, which was right up the road in Erskine, South Carolina, 10 miles. My advisor, a feisty feminist Roman Catholic nun named Rosemary, did the research for me. She said, well, not only are they misogynist, they are inbred. Referring to the fact that all the professors had gone to Erskine College and graduated from Erskine. She said, you won't survive there. So my call to ministry was trumping my Scarlett O'Hara tendencies, and I knew what I had to do. And lucky there was a buyer in the wings, and the house sold quickly. So I had to put my antiques and my family possessions into storage. And my mother was living in an apartment with a no pets policy. So I thought, well, it makes sense for me to buy a little house in town with some of my equity and move my mother into a house. So the day that I turned over the keys to the new owner of the farm, my mother and I stopped at the local pet store to see if they had any kittens. They had 2. We bought them both. And the closing on the house was a few days away, so I had to smuggle the cats into my mother's apartment. It's like the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law, right? Because there were no pets allowed in that apartment. So Those of you who know the stress of moving, I had sold my farm, bought a new house, moved my mother from an apartment to the new house, dealt with my grief. I was a wreck. My anxiety level was astronomical, so much so that I couldn't even convince even one of my 3 children to drive me to the Atlanta airport to go back to seminary. Now, they had legitimate excuses, but I knew they just didn't want to deal with their white-knuckle anxiety mother. So I thought, okay, fine, I'm an independent woman now, I'll handle this problem. So I found a limo service for $50. And so I called it, I arranged it. I had purchased my ticket on Priceline, which was about 2.5 hours to the Atlanta airport. I was picked up that morning by this charming older gentleman who made me feel like royalty and chatted up my mother. He loaded my suitcase in the car, and I relaxed in the back seat, reflecting on my accomplishments. Well done, Cathy. Well done, Cathy. My gloating lasted about 20 minutes when the driver headed north on I-85 instead of south. And I realized there was a mistake. Are you going to Greenville Airport? I hired you to go to the Atlanta airport. Oh, sorry, ma'am, we don't drive to the Atlanta airport. We only go to Greenville, Spartanburg. Well, oh my God, I said, okay, take me back. I wasn't giving up. I thought, well, I could go back and reschedule my flight and figure out how to get there. So I got on the phone and there was no hope. I don't know if you know Priceline is no refunds. That's why they're cheaper, they told me. I felt sorry for myself and did a little swearing, maybe. And then it occurred to me that my classes weren't starting for over 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks. What was the hurry? My son and his family and my granddaughter were on their way to Florida, to our favorite vacation spot, Ponce Inlet. I knew I had to buy another ticket to get back to Berkeley anyway, so I said to my mother, let's go to the beach. So I called the Daystar, and as luck would have it, they had 1 room left. And Mommy said, but Cathy, what about the kittens? And I said, well, take them with us. So we loaded up my mom's Honda Civic and headed to Florida. My granddaughter was 3 years old, and I hardly knew her because I had been living in Alaska when she was born, and then Berkeley. So my mom had this little 10-year-old Honda that she inherited from a friend who was a widow, who had bought it new. It had about 10,000 miles on it, less than. But the problem was that Anne was so frugal that she would change her own oil and transmission fluid. And sometimes she was confused, and she would put the oil in the transmission, and the transmission in the oil. And naturally, the transmission was wrecked. So I told my son we were coming. He said, well, Ma, you can't drive that car over 60 miles an hour. And I said, okay. So we put the kittens in the carrier, and we made it almost to Brunswick, Georgia. The transmission gave out, and I had to coast into this little convenience store a few miles outside of Brunswick. It was hot that summer. You could cut the air with a knife. Early August. It was humid. Ugh. I went inside the store and asked if my mother could get a chair and bring the kittens inside because it was so hot. I was afraid someone had died in California when the heat wave had been 100 degrees. This older couple, the car broke down. They were on the side of the road. They died. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to kill my mother. So my mother was sitting there in a chair with these little kittens beside her, attracting all kinds of attention, and I was outside waiting, melting in more ways than one. But Mommy was the belle of the ball. And I regret that it didn't occur to me to put a tin cup beside her feet so we could pay for the tow truck. So, after the Enlightenment, the laundry, right? So finally the guy shows up, and I'm drenched in sweat, and he's such a nice guy. And tow trucks are like, I had to hoist my little mom up into the tow truck, hand her the kittens, and then I had to climb in. And then that's about when the driver said, oh, I'm so sorry, but my air conditioner went out yesterday. So my mom, my 2 little kittens, and I were bounced on I-75 in the front seat of a tow truck with the windows flapped open. The best way to describe my hair after that experience was that it was violent. My mother was turning red and the kittens' tongues were hanging out. My mother never perspires. When she started to perspire on her forehead, I was getting scared. So I could just see the headlines. South Carolina woman just had to go to the beach. Her mother and 2 kittens perish in the heat. Selfish, neglect, to think she was studying to be a minister. We made it to the Honda dealership in Brunswick. They changed the oil like a dozen times. It didn't help. But it was cool in there, and Mom and the kittens were given water, and, they were fussing over her. They got us a luxury rental car, and they loaded up our belongings. We got in that car, and it was just like, the cool air. Mom and the kittens fell asleep. And we pulled into the Daystar. We were greeted by my family. My granddaughter, Abby, jumped into my arms for a bear hug. She is 3 years old with little blonde curly pigtails, cutoffs, and a contagious joy that made all of those trials disappear. I had to run to catch up with her. She wanted to go to the beach. She said, "Come on, Another Grammy, let's check it out." Let's check it out. I was Another Grammy because when I was in Alaska, she was born, and my mother was Grammy. So I was Another Grammy. So the point of this story is, I would have missed that experience. I would have missed the experience of going to seminary if I had listened to the voice that said I wasn't good enough. If all had gone planned, I would have missed that priceless moment. So I just hope for you to reopen to the moments of grace, to accept your mistakes as your best ingredients, and live in the layers of your life, not on the litter. So I translate that Zen proverb, after enlightenment, the laundry, to mean, after enlightenment, shitski happens, no matter how much you prepare. And it's all in the letting go. May it be so. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life. Let us continue risen in body or spirit so we can extinguish the chalice together and share our benediction.
As we extinguish the flame of this chalice, may we carry its light with us into the world in the power of peace, faith, justice, and love.
These words from Charles Howe to send us on our way. May we go forth from this place thankful for the life that sustains us and renews us, and open to the grace that surrounds us and surprises us. May we go forth from this place with openness and with thanksgiving. May it be so. Blessed be.
Where the horizon lies,